foulest stench is in the air. The funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver. For no mere mortal can resist the evil of the No Spin Zone, home of the O'Donnell Factor, and welcome back to a very spooky, scary, and silly episode of the show where we discuss horror movies in depth. Next week, we will go back to our Hollywood and Hoops format, and before you ask, yes, we are going to talk about Alec Baldwin killing somebody, because that's just insane. I never thought I'd see the day where the craziest thing, and he'd do anything crazier than the time he refused to get off the plane because he wouldn't stop playing Words with Friends. But I'm getting ahead of myself, you know. Be ready to talk about ghosts and ghouls and zombies and vampires and all other things scary, including werewolves and talking to attractive girls. Okay, maybe the other one is just me. But speaking of being scared of talking to attractive girls, let's meet my guest for this week, a longtime friend of the show.
Hi, my name is Michael Cronenberger. This is my third time on in the Spin Zone.
No Spin Zone.
And I'm excited to talk about horror movies. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Let's talk.
All right, let's do it. Well, let's get right into it by talking about Get Out. So released about 5 years ago, directed by comedian and screenwriter Jordan Peele. You know, when Jordan Peele, you know, the star of Key and Peele, one of the stars of Key and Peele, first said he was directing a horror movie, no one knew what to think. You know, everyone just kind of laughed and said, good luck with that. And it ended up being one of the most poignant films, you know, ever, especially of recent memory. Every once in a while, one of those movies comes about that makes us, you know, realize how much we love movies, and Get Out is one of those movies. So let me ask you, before we dive into the themes of it, what statement do you think the movie was saying about, well, you know the movie's about racism. What exactly do you think the movie was saying about racism?
I think the movie really just pointed towards how maybe society as a whole kind of has evolved, and while racism in America maybe was more pointed and direct back in previous decades, now it's more subtle, but the malintent is still there, and honestly I thought it played very well into the horror genre, and I think that Jordan Peele did a great job with it. And a lot of recent horror movies before that were more about jump scares. They were more about, you know, gross out, scary. They're trying to get you with that physical scare. I think Get Out did a good job of getting you with that emotional scare, and the horror was more plot driven than action driven, which is something I definitely appreciated, and especially for at the time a young director, it was really cool to see.
A lot of twists and turns. I should have said this earlier. I should preface this by saying, if you haven't seen any of the movies we will discuss, and I'll say each one before we discuss, but get ready for a lot of spoilers. Just, if you plan on watching any of these movies, and obviously I would love for everyone to see these movies because they're all great films, but just get ready for a lot of spoilers. I want to dive into, the location for Get Out. Now, I might need you to look this up. I can't remember where the movie is set, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't think they ever say.
I think it's set in Georgia, but let me check.
Okay, because my next question was going to be, what do you think the location of the film says about it? How do you think that sets the tone for the film?
I'm looking this up right now. It says it was filmed in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
I think it's somewhere in the South. We're just supposed to assume. Sorry, Ryan. What was your question again?
It's been a while since I've been called Ryan. What do you think the location? How do you think it sets the tone for the movie?
Well, I think that you could see the transition from the main character starts in more of a suburban, urban environment. Then you go out to that rural area, and I think that there's a common horror trope to see. That rural farm vibe, and it's something that once again he took an expectation and kind of subverted it with having that subtle horror, where you expect when you go out to the country or you go out to the farm in a horror movie, you're gonna see chainsaws, you're gonna see farm equipment, you're gonna see fire, you're gonna see all this, but it really was more contained to that small, subtle scares, especially towards the end when are we allowed to
Spoiler alert, yeah.
Okay. You know, towards the end when you get that your heart drops when after the main character finally overcomes that family, you see the police car pull up,
Yeah.
and it looks as though he's about to be set up for a murder charge, or the police might be in on it. I think that was one of the like scariest things. You know, that was a great movie to see in theaters because I think everybody in the theater's heart dropped, and that was such a great subtle scare from Jordan Peele.
I wanted to point out the alternate ending of that movie. I think actually, you do see him get arrested.
Yeah, I read that. Jordan Peele wanted it to have a more darker ending,
Yeah.
but I think that I kind of like it with the happier ending, just because I'm obviously a big horror movie fan, or else I wouldn't be on the show today.
Of course.
But I do like when movies have a good ending, and you know, it feels as though the plot is wrapped up, and obviously the themes that are touched on in Get Out persist well past the movie's runtime. But to see that the main character have a good ending, I cheer for the main character always. So I'm happy. I was happy to see it.
What you mentioned about being filled with garages full of chainsaws, you know, that of course that's always a good spot to hide in those types of movies.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the no spin zone, you know, of course, endorses when you're running away from a killer in a horror movie. You should go hide by the chainsaws, the open containers of gasoline, and you know, all the different tools and farm equipment.
The mayor of the No Spin Zone himself does not necessarily endorse this message. My thoughts about the location. Well, actually, I meant to say I have seen the alternate ending. It is dark. You see the character Rod, ably played by the comedian Lil Howley, visit Chris in jail, and just you know, like, it's just they kind of have like a tough conversation. But my thoughts of location is basically it really gives off a plantation vibe, which I think kind of what they're saying with that is just how much the past is interwoven into the present. Yeah, the United States hasn't had slavery in years and years, but what Jordan Peele is trying to say is that, you know, we still kind of see the consequences of it over time. And I want to dive into the themes here. What theme are there any themes or motives you've noticed in this movie?
I mean, obviously, a theme is just not everything is what you seem at first. You see a lot of, I would say, yeah, motifs to American history, motifs to, I mean, like I said earlier, different, like, Jordan Peele uses, like, common horror tropes and kind of inverts them in his own way, and I think that's probably what I appreciated the most about this movie. But yeah, you do see a lot of references and themes from previous horror movies, previous movies about American history, or just American history in general.
I was gonna say one trope in movies that I'm glad he subverts, and it's awesome to see him subvert, is the white savior trope. You know, how many movies have we seen where some, you know, Blindside being the best example, make Michael Orr look like the dumbest person on earth, and you know, saying. Another example would be honestly something like 12 Years a Slave, Brad Pitt's character in that.
Or like, yeah, something like Green Book too.
Oh, that's the best example I could have used. Jeez. I mean, yeah, they literally do a KFC commercial in the middle of the movie. How, like, they tried so hard to not be racist, yet they still were really racist at the same time. It didn't really make sense. Like, I don't really get it. But some themes I noticed in the movie. So, one thing that is really cool is when Chris is having tea with Rose's mother. And, you know, that whole thing, the silver spoon, kind of an allegory for, you know, wealth being passed down from generation to generation. And how, you know, historically in America, a lot of black families haven't been able to experience that because